This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Come, let us explore why you don't need a guru to meditate properly, followed by meditate like a Jedi. This morning's lesson is drawn from the fourth verse of the meditation manual titled Spaciousness of Vajrasattva, or Dorje Sempa Namkache, composed oh so many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Prahevajra, also known as Garo Dorje. So here's my plan. I'm going to read you this first, I'm going to explain it, and then I'll read it one more time. That's my intention. Earth, air, fire, and water are the indwelling divine, which are solid yet void, spacious yet void, warm yet void, and wet yet void. Despite our mistaken notions, liberation dawns from within our own being and is not dependent on others. Let us begin with the dark shadow cast by patriarchy. Let's tap button 9. About 300,000 years ago, humanity could be described as enjoying the Paleolithic era, wherein our culture drove us to be flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Very nice. About 290,000 years later, that came to a screeching halt during the rise of proto-capitalism during the Neolithic Revolution. During that time, our new culture conditioned us to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. So whenever I'm referring to our attributes, which are in harmony with the Big Lebowski, I refer to patriarchy. And whenever I refer to the attributes attributed to the dude, I'm referring to matriarchy, spiritual matriarchy to be more precise. Now, let's turn back to the other page. Many members of patriarchy are rather sincere. Not so smart, but they're sincere in their fear, and they're sincere in their rigidity, and they definitely want you to be just like them, thinking it's the best way to be. But there's always going to be a certain percentage who are cynical and cruel and elitist and exploitive. And they want you under their thumb. They want the prestige and profit that comes from milking you like a cow or fleecing you like the flock. These are, and both, what do both these groups have in common? They both say, you can't do this on your own. You need our guidance. You need our blessing. You need our permission. You ain't enlightened unless we say you're enlightened. You're not a Buddhist unless we say you're a Buddhist. You're not a meditator unless we say you're a meditator. This is cranky and controlling and yucky. It has nothing to do with peace. It has nothing to do with love. And that's exactly why when we turn back to our opening passage, not opening passage, but our teaching text, we read, despite our mistaken notions, liberation dawns from within our being and is not dependent on others. What is not dependent on others? Liberation. What is liberation a synonym of? Enlightenment. Regardless of what you call it, whether you use English or Pali or Sanskrit or Tibetan, our enlightenment is not dependent on others' permission or blessings or recognition. We don't need to grab people by the lapels and say, hey, look how awesome I am. Believe in me. We don't need their acclaim. We don't need their approval. So here's how this works. Consider our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. Everything about them teaches us mindfulness and wisdom. That sometimes our bodies are so that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever solidity or spaciousness or warmth or wetness we might have noticed during our previous inhalations could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand. We don't have to I'm going to switch back to another diagram real quick. I'm going to tap button 9 and subject you mercilessly to another diagram. Every time we exhale, let's try this again. Let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we mean to or not, we are automatically accessing the middle bit of our spinal cord, whose fancy name would be the nexus of our sympathetic nervous system. And it is evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics, all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. What do we, in the easy way, the most efficient way for us to watch these antics of mind is for us to silently and mentally recite the verb watch every time we feel our chest swell with breath. But what do we do with that which we notice? Well, that brings us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are already wired to effortlessly and automatically access the attic-like region and the basement-like region of that same spinal cord. These two extremes working as a team are known as the nexus of our parasympathetic nervous system. They have evolved to help us to relax in such a way that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. So when we actively try to force our brain to focus and analyze, we exhaust the front part of our brain, the dorsolateral medial prefrontal cortex, begin presenting with symptoms of depression, and trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. But by passively cooperating with both facets of our spinal cord, our amygdala is calmed, and our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy, is gently stimulated. Now, here's the wild thing. All of us have a spinal cord. All of us have the capacity to, I skipped a step. The most efficient way to practice meditation, the most efficient way to rest in the aspect of mind that feels non-graspable, is to simply, silently and mentally recite the verb rest every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. We always breathe. Whether we want to or not, you're going to breathe. You can throw a tantrum and hold your breath and until you turn blue. But once you pass out, you're going to breathe. It's involuntary. It's automatic. And so we're already wired to watch and rest in harmony with our breathing. No matter what kind of mistakes we make, no matter how many years we waste in focus and analysis and aggression and anxiety, there will inevitably come a time when, out of exhaustion, we just stop fighting our own autonomic nervous system and watch and rest. So this is an automatic process. There is no paywall. This isn't some cult that will charge you several $1,000s for a secret mantra that really isn't secret. This isn't some cult that will have you do preliminary practices for years and years before they give you the good stuff. This is the Buddha's essential teachings that have been practiced in the Theravadan circles and the Mahayana circles and the Tantrayana circles. Different names, different languages, same exercise. Whether you call this Sutra Mahamudra, whether you call this Treksha, whether you call this Dzogchen, whether you call this Ati Yoga, whether you call this Mahasandhi, whether you call this Dhyana, whether you call this Jhana, whether you call this Chan, whether you call this Zen, whether you call this Sati Pasadi, whether you call this Sati Samadhi, this is the Buddha's teaching. And we are free to use it anytime, any place, with nobody's permission. Nobody can take this from you. If you are familiar with the Star Wars extended universe, you know that when some people have left the Jedi Order or kicked out of the Jedi Order, the Jedi punish them by cutting them off from the Force, which seems pretty evil, if you ask me. No one can cut you off from your own autonomic nervous system. People can take your life, sure, but short of that, as long as you have breath in your body, we can watch and rest as we breathe in and as we breathe out. Having explained it one more time, I'm going to go over the root text just to lock this good stuff in. Earth, air, fire, and water are the indwelling divine. Despite our mistaken notion, liberation dawns from within our own being and is not dependent on others. One moment, if you please. Excuse me. Oh, goodness. And with every sneeze, his IQ plummets. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. The Buddha Joy Meditation School is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. And now let us together meditate like a Jedi. There we go. The free fall, that is meditation, could feel jarring to our rigid and controlling tendencies. A useful workaround could be simply practicing a variation of Bengali crease counting. We could touch the tip of our left thumb upon the lower set of creases of its left little finger. Doing so could help us to keep track of our first set of 16 inhalations. Until we come back to this, let us set this bad boy palms up in our lap. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch as our chest swells with breath, we could advance our right thumb up the creases and tips of each of its fingers. Together as a team, let us do this together, beginning with our right little finger. As you can plainly see, I've run out of places upon which to touch the tip of my right thumb. That means it's time to return my attention to my left hand and advance my left thumb up to the next set of creases. And thus you can viscerally feel the basic process of counting 16 sets of 16 inhalations each. Counting 16 inhalations on our right hand takes a little bit more than a minute. Counting 16 sets of 16 inhalations each upon our left hand takes a little bit more than 20 minutes. When we begin gathering our first collection of 20 minutes, if we wanted to, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger, palm the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. When we begin gathering our second collection of 20 minutes, we could touch the middle bit, or the middle knuckle of our right middle finger, on the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. And you guessed it, when we begin gathering our third collection of 20 minutes, we could rest. I gotta make sure my fingers aren't in the way. Okay. We could rest the third knuckle of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger. Once again, palms up in my lap. Now, If you feel overwhelmed, allow me to reassure you that the antidote to overwhelm is repetition. Meditate with me every 12 hours or so, and within a week or two, this path you could master. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques of Taoism, Buddha, Tantra, Dzogchen, Zen, or Mahamudra, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. In approximately 7 1/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's third lesson, followed by meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.